Hey guys, I recently got a request to do a review on a very specific Relient K album, and this was part of the thing I was doing where, like, if you bought one of my CDs, you could request any video you wanted, basically, and this is what somebody wanted. So, who was actually the person who wanted? Let me see. Jason Bourne. I'm not making that up. So, Jason. This was not an album that I was ever familiar with. I did sort of have a Relient K phase towards the end of like the 2000s. I'd say it was like 2007, maybe 2006 even, maybe somewhere around there. And it was right around when they had like Be My Escape out, and the rest of that album, I think it was called And then they had an album after that called 7 years ago, I believe it was called. Those were the two albums that I was really familiar with, and at the time I was really into them. I was really just trying to get my fill of anything really pop punk related at the time, and they definitely did their own sort of thing. They even had like the Christian sort of angle to it, which I could take or leave, really. I didn't realize it at first that they were a Christian band, but kind of like once you find out that they are, it's kind of all you can hear. You start to realize that every song is pretty much about God, or you at least assume that it is. But whatever. I mean, it doesn't really take away from the songs themselves. But yeah, so I really got into those albums at the time, and I eventually outgrew the band, and just kind of the genre in general. But when I listened to this album recently, after I gotten the suggestion, I really find that it was too bad I didn't listen to it sooner. I feel like I would have really liked it at the time. I think it's right on par quality-wise with the other two albums that I really liked. The lyrics are definitely a low point for me personally. I never really cared for their lyrics, whether or not they had any sort of religious, ideas through them. I always thought they were just kind of, I don't even know what kind of word to describe. Maybe juvenile. I felt like they were not very mature in their lyrics, and there's plenty of bands that are like that in the genre, but for some reason when they did it, it just didn't really seem as fun or funny, I guess. I don't know, it just didn't really work for me with them. And I don't know, I mean, I think the production is cool. I think it's a good sounding album. There's a lot of great vocal harmonies that they're definitely known for, and that was one of the things I always really liked about them the most, is the vocal harmonies are really good when they use them, whether it's just kind of like a big ending to a song, or it's just like a little bit like a bridge of a song or whatever. I always really liked that, because not a lot of pop bands or pop punk bands are really known for having great vocals, and I definitely think the guy can sing, and I don't know how many of the other band members are part of those harmonies or whatever, but they're definitely doing a good job with it, so I always liked that. Guitars and drums and bass all sound good. They really excel, in my opinion, on their faster songs. I don't remember the name of the song specifically, but there was one on there that was definitely a bit more upbeat, and it had some pretty cool guitar riffing on there, and I think it's pretty cool. I think those are definitely their more better songs. I think those are the ones that interest me more than like the softer, slower songs that they start to really turn into down the line. That was kind of why I kind of fell out of love with them, I guess. but it was always the more up tempo stuff that I appreciated from them. And you know, a lot of people knock Relient K, say that, you know, they're lame or whatever, but you know, when it really comes down to it, is they do what they do well. And those few albums, I don't know about their super early stuff. I still haven't listened to like their first album or first couple, whatever. This album I'm talking about, Two Lefts Don't Make It Right. I gotta say, I mean, I think it's pretty solid. Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this really isn't the sort of music I'm into anymore. But, you know, I could still appreciate things for what they are. Every now and then I get a little nostalgic and I feel like going back and listening to something I haven't heard in a while, whether it's like a Good Charlotte song or a Bowling for Soup song or whatever, but it's usually not something I listen to constantly. And I don't know, I still think that Relient K deserves a lot of credit, because they're definitely original, and I really think they have their own sort of vibe that not a lot of other bands can really say that they have the same sort of thing going on. So if you can look past like the religious sort of ideas through their songs, you know, even for me especially, I don't really care about lyrics very often. They're usually like the last thing that I care about, the last thing that I really focus on, unless they're just straight up terrible and they're noticeably terrible, which isn't the case here. It's just, I don't know, they're really not for me in the end. But I think it's a cool album. Like I said, I wish it was something I had gotten into, you know, 10, 15 years ago, but what are you gonna do? So hopefully this was a good enough review for you. I mean, I don't really have too much else to talk about. I mean, it's definitely Relient K from start to finish, and there really isn't too much else to talk about unless, you know, I go on specifically into each song, and I don't really feel like I need to in this case. So yeah, decent album, decent band, but I don't know, they kind of fell off the radar for me for a reason. So earlier stuff is definitely better than the newer stuff, I think. So anyway, I'll catch you guys later. See ya.